all of this together. My name is Brittany Jingoleski, and I will be moderating tonight. I also will kind of be a panelist as well, so feel free to ask me questions as well. A little bit of background about myself is I'm a North Central alum. I graduated in 2018 with a bachelor's in human resource management and sociology. I'm currently in the North Central's master program for higher education leadership, and I'm also the GA for the honors program. We have a range of alumni here tonight to share advice and just kind of talk and answer any questions you might have. So I just want to say I encourage everyone to ask any questions you guys might have in the chat. We really encourage that. I do have questions prepared, so I will have that, but just really want to throw that out there that we are encouraging your own questions. So to get started, if we can have the panelists introduce themselves, just share your name, a little bit about your background at your time at North Central, your undergrad, your majors, etc., and then the program that you attended or are currently attending for your master's. Rain, if you could start us off with your introduction.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Rain Odom. I am a North Central College 2020 graduate. I received my Bachelor's of Arts in Philosophy and Sociology with a minor in Conflict Resolution, and I'm currently attending UIC John Marshall Law School.
Well, thank you. Danielle, do you want to go next?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Terry. I'm actually a 2020 master's alumni from North Central College. I also majored in the leadership and higher education master's program.
Thank you. I know it's exciting to see Danielle back. And then Kaylee?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kaylee. I graduated from North Central in 2019. I got my bachelor's in marketing. I was also in the honors program. And I went to grad school in Scotland at the University of Strathclyde, where I got my degree in international management. So.
That is so cool. Like, and then Annika?
Yeah, hi, I'm Anika. I graduated in 2020 as well with my degree in psychology. I was also part of the honors program, and then I'm currently at DePaul, and I'm getting my master's in counseling, and I'm on, because they have 2 tracks, I'm on the clinical mental health counseling track.
Well, thank you. As you can see, we have a lot of variety in our panelists, so that's kind of really exciting to see all the different paths we can take in master's programs. So to get started, I do have a first question for the panelists, but again, everyone feel free to throw your own questions in there. What experiences did you have at North Central that helped you decide to go to grad school? And Danielle, I know you didn't go to North Central for undergrad, but your experience in undergrad in general as well. So whoever wants to jump in, feel free to answer with the question.
I can jump in. So no, I did not do my undergrad at North Central. I actually did my undergrad at Governor State University, which is in University Park, Illinois. And I was an English major, and I was going back and forth between deciding if I wanted to go to grad school for English, to be an English professor, or did I want to work in higher education, because I had been doing lots of things, student work and kind of activism around campus. So ultimately, I decided that I would study student development, leadership in higher ed. And I was kind of mentored along with some of my professors and administrators to especially seek out North Central as a school, as a top school for leadership in higher ed.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like your background coming from a different undergrad institution and coming to North Central for master's. So that's awesome. Do any of the other panelists have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I can share. Sorry. Um, so obviously I decided to go overseas for my graduate program. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I studied abroad my junior year in Spain and absolutely loved it. And it was actually kind of that return study abroad fair that North Central put on, where I learned about this opportunity to go study across the pond was the organization that I worked with. So for me, it was kind of like a mix of weird reasons I decided, I guess, to pursue it. But it kind of came down to like, why not for me? And then a few other practical reasons. I actually wanted to, originally, I was thinking about going to law school. I did like a corporate law internship and everything. And then kind of this opportunity to spend a year overseas came up. And I was like, these programs are 1-year programs. The cost of that compared to staying in the States and going to law school was just crazy different. So um, a lot of reasons just kind of played into that. And I'm really thankful that it all worked out the way it did. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's awesome that the experience you had is studying abroad helped kind of, and then the new study abroad fair. So we do have another question in the chat, so this is great. Thank you, Charles. Your question was, can you guys describe the work experience required by your graduate program prior to like applying and post undergrad?
I can start with this one just because law school doesn't like necessarily require you to have any work experience. But I will say though, I think the most shocking thing for me was how many individuals who are not right out of undergrad are in law school. And so taking time off to pursue a career and figuring out later is pretty common. And I will say that the people who do have careers or had a little bit of work experience, like clerking, seem to have more success or are people to go to for knowledge for certain things, just because they're older. Like I just came out, so but mine, of course, didn't require it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with Rain, with counseling. There's no like requirement for having work experience. Sure, there's people who come in with working as like a assistant behavioral technician. But I came in with only retail experience. So there's really nothing there. And like Rain, there's people in my courses that are in their 30s and 40s, and then there's people who are in their early 20s. So it kind of varies.
Can I throw a little bit in on there too? So specifically for my major, which was student leadership, I think what helped because I had jobs in retail and I went to graduate school directly after, like I graduated from undergrad in the spring and I was in graduate school in the fall. But one thing I believe really helped me get into graduate school because I was choosing between North Central and Loyola. And one thing that really helped was like the work that I did as an undergrad. So I started a mentorship program, like lots of leadership things. I took on lots of leadership opportunities. I did writing, I presented. So being really involved on campus and working with students really helped me. I was able to speak to that for the degree that I was going to study. And I think that's what really helps me get into the graduate school program of my choice.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you just said, Danny. I'm on a very similar path as Danny. I'm the GA for Danny's old position, and I'm in the same master's program she was in. And my experience was I didn't go to back to grad school right after undergrad. I like worked in HR, and then I really decided that I didn't like HR anymore. It just didn't fit right with me. And I'm really glad I did that because it helped me decide to what I wanted to do. So if I would have gone to grad school right after, probably wouldn't have made the like decision to go to grad school because I just wasn't in that headspace. So we do have another question. This one is from Rolla. Oh, I'm sorry, Rolla. What are the major differences between undergrad courses and grad school courses? And this is also Ryan's question, so that worked out really well.
I'll start off just because I kind of have it in my head. The major difference for me is that it's a lot more about application rather than like knowing and understanding the material. So I'm now because DePaul's on quarters, so I'm 2 quarters in. I've not had a single test. Um, and like no midterms, no final test. It's all just kind of either papers or actually showing your ability to understand the material rather than just memorizing. And it's a lot more reading. So I read, I'm probably assigned like 8 chapters a week at least, sometimes up to 11. So it's a lot of reading, but a lot less testing on it for me, at least.
Yeah, I'll add just kind of in the more like business industry, like obviously I did international management, and it was like you said, a lot of application stuff. It was, just like undergrad, there's a lot of group projects, but even more so because they're trying to prepare you for, the kind of work you're going to be doing out in the workforce. So there's a lot of that along with like really intensive, like real life application projects. For me, that was a major difference, and that's probably true across all the industries and majors.
For law school, being a philosophy major, I didn't really think that the workload changed too much. It's not, I would say like page wise, it's pretty comparable. I was doing an undergrad, but I will say that, and this could just be like a Zoom thing too, but there's not a whole lot of group work. It's very individual, reading cases and briefing the cases yourself, showing up prepared. But I personally have not felt like the workload changed that much, but other majors who've come to law school find it to be a huge drastic change. And so that's why I think one of the things that North Central prepared me for was the kind of style of law school teaching that you traditionally hear about.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everyone. It's more practical, especially for me because I was a graduate assistant. And so my position at North Central was directly tied to my schoolwork. So whatever I was learning in the classroom, student development theory, it was applicable to me working with students, doing programs, coordinating things. So those two things worked hand in hand. The graduate assistantship, which allowed me to actually work in the field. And along with the coursework, which again, lots of reading. At the time, there was group work because we were on campus. Um, yeah, so for me, it tied very closely hand in hand.
Yeah, thank you. That was a really good question. So Faith had a question. What was the main thing that helped you decide on a specific grad school that you're currently in or like attended? And then it's a two-part question. So looking back at all the graduate programs out there, it could be pretty overwhelming. So what like ultimately helped you decide?
I'll go first again. Mine was kind of a weird thing where I was planning on moving across the country. I really wanted to go out to Seattle area. So I applied to 3 schools out there, and then I had DePaul be my backup just in case like I wasn't going to be able to move out there, which obviously ended up happening because I'm now going to DePaul. But really it was more just like it's a great school. The program is one of the top rated counseling programs in the country. And yeah, it's in the city, which I love Chicago. So it was kind of more just like location wise and then price wise of me staying in this location because I was already planning on staying with my parents this first year. And obviously with COVID, that didn't need to change. So yeah, for me, it was a lot of location and then the actual quality of the program.
So for me, I'm actually in the process of looking for doctoral programs. And so a big thing for me is like price, and location because I do have a family. I own a home, so I'm not able to be adventurous like Emma and like go across the country. I wish I could, but at this point I can. So I'm looking for programs that are closed, online programs, and also if programs are offering scholarships, fellowships, or any type of funding for PhD or EDD students. That's my biggest drive right now.
I'll just speak to this because I don't know if any of you out there are considering going abroad for graduate school, but one thing that was really important to me was the reputation of the program, because generally the US has a lot of really top tier universities. And so if I was going to go abroad, I wanted to make sure that if I brought that degree back to the States, that it would be regarded just as high as, you know, a US degree. So that was something that I wanted to look at. So I did a lot of research to make sure that the program and the school had a good reputation and, you know, would actually carry some weight in the place where I wanted to start my career. So that was important to me. And if anyone has like specific international degree questions, feel free to reach out to me. I don't want to dominate the panel in case there's no one in that boat, but yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, I echo most of what everybody was saying. I think the biggest thing is always price, especially with law school. But one key piece of advice that I was given was in regards to sort of the law school rankings, which seems to be a big deal in the community. If you are not going to like a top 15 school, then the rest of them really are about the same. I chose to go to John Marshall off of that advice because I felt like I would have rather been at the top of my class at an unranked school than being very stressed out about my grades and my, I guess, worth at like a Northwestern. The competition at John Marshall is not really existent. Everybody's been very chill and not really like competing against one another. And I think that I don't know, I've never been to a top schools, of course, but I just feel like at a top school, and the competition and stress would probably be more prevalent there. So that was one of the big reasons why I chose a smaller school like John Marshall.
I do have one more thing to add for mine. If you're looking at programs that have like a nationwide accreditation, I would suggest going to one of those because at least for counseling, there's the CACREP accreditation. And that just means like if you do decide to move somewhere else, if you need to get a license or whatever, it'll be easier to transfer that license to a different state. So if you're looking into that, check those out too, because that's also important.
Thank you. That was a really great question. So next question we have is from Rebecca, and she asked if there are any teaching assistants or probably like graduate assistants too in your graduate program, and if so, what is it like managing teaching? I don't know if anyone isn't a teaching assistant, but I know Danny can speak of being a GA, and I can speak of being a GA. So if you have, that is more applicable.
Absolutely. What was the end part of the question? How to manage the workload and coursework? Okay.
Yeah.
So it actually it really prepares you because if I added it all up, my graduate assistant was about 20, 25 hours, somewhere in between there a week. And then with coursework, that was about another 20 hours. So about 40 hours a week. It really helped that I was a student at North Central and I also worked there. So people understood that, sometimes my schoolwork would go first. Dr. Garrity was great with that. And she gave me lots of flexibility. So yeah, so it's definitely manageable. And, for me, it was worth it. A lot of times like graduate assistantships, it'll help you pay for your schooling, but sometimes you still may need extra money. And so you may have to, that's just a reality of it sometimes. but it's definitely manageable. And then so with things being online now, there's other ways that make it easier to work, that can kind of free up your time. So if you need to work from home, and then you can also do your schoolwork at home, so there's ways now that can free up your time and kind of make it easier on a student. Because for me at the time, I was traveling. I was traveling about an hour to North Central, and then still doing schoolwork and the GA position. But I managed to do it, and I did it, and everything turned out okay. So I wouldn't worry about that part too much. I mean, it will be tough days, but um, you'll be able to make it through. And then once you start working, you'll just be used to it. You'll be used to it by that time.
Yeah, I'm also a GA. So I can't like answer a specific question about like teaching, but I would definitely encourage you to look into either of those options if that's kind of what you want to do, because it definitely helps like the financial aspect of them paying for like your degree. And there's so much overlap sometimes that it kind of helps you further develop your like professional goals too. So and then we do have another question kind of following up on that, is just like a work-life balance, work school balance, just in general, for anyone else.
I'm not working right now, so and most of the stuff too has been remote, like for summer jobs. So I can't give too much input, but the workload, I mean, especially with being on Zoom, that's the hard thing right now, is because I hope that people considering going to graduate school and law school, you're in person next semester or some variation, because the kind of freedom that Zoom has allowed me, I think is going to be changed once I have to travel to and from classes and lug everything with me. So
Yeah, I have to agree. I have a lot more time than I thought I would during grad school. And I think it's because of Zoom. I mean, I only have classes 2 or 3 days a week, just the way DePaul has it set up, and then I work on the weekends. And honestly, I have so much time during the week, unless it's like getting close to finals and I have a couple of papers or whatever. But yeah, I don't know what it'll be like when we're back in person. I'm hoping I'll be able to get a handle on it. But yeah, right now it hasn't been too terrible. I don't know what that'd be like working full time, since I am only part time. I'm sure it would be a lot harder, but that's kind of all I can say on it.
So we don't have any more questions in the chat, so if anyone wants to throw any more out there, but I do have another question. What do you love about being in or grad school?
I really love the autonomy of mine. Moving to Chicago was a great experience so far. I've been here 8 months. I absolutely love it. I also just love the material a lot. The material is interesting, so that makes classes. But I think the biggest thing is the professors. They've been so welcoming, and they're trying very hard, at least, to make this the best that it can be. So I think that the help that the professors have been giving and the communication with all the students has been very great too.
I think for me, one of the things that I loved about grad school was that the people you're around, the people you're studying with, there's this understanding that you all kind of have this same goal, right? Of like, obviously you went through the work of applying to grad school, you got in, like there's a passion there. And so I think it's really a neat experience to be studying alongside people that share the same level of passion about something. Cause I think there's just a lot more of that, like, iron sharpening iron kind of thing, that you maybe don't get, or is just a bit more rare in undergrad.
One big thing for me, I love that I went somewhere different. So so like when we talk about Chicago and Chicagoland, there's different areas. So far south in the south suburbs, and I decided to go to the west suburbs. I wanted to have a different experience. I wanted to be in a different part of Chicagoland, and I really appreciate that. I've made some really great friends at North Central in the graduate program, specifically because of that iron sharpens iron mentality. And we kind of leaned on each other. We still do. And, and talking about different events in the world, getting our assignments completed together. I think that was like the biggest part, like kind of like delving more into the work. Um, and being able to apply it, even the job searching process, you kind of have somebody who gets it. And again, with graduate school, there's the autonomy, so you are going to be working. Sometimes people are starting families in graduate school, and so and again, when you have the different ages, the different backgrounds, you get to see how different people, what they bring to the table. It just opens you up to, I guess, just a larger demographic. And I think that's probably one of the most exciting things about graduate school. Yeah.
Yeah. I really don't have much to add except for, yeah, the friendships that are made. There is that kind of kinship of being like, okay, we're in this together. It's not like there's a ton of people, at least for my program, I think there's about maybe 30 people actually in the cohort. So we all kind of are getting used to seeing each other in classes, and it's just kind of like working together, getting to know people and learning new perspectives from people of really any age and from anywhere, because there's some people in my classes who are in like Texas or Washington, because we're able to be online. So yeah, just kind of meeting a bunch of new people and learning a lot of things that will further my career.
Yeah, I think everybody's answers like covered everything, but I think the at least like my program's all online, and I think that is one of the coolest things ever to see that where everybody's coming from. Like there's people out of state right now, and all of that. It's just kind of like I think really interesting to see. So um, we have a couple more questions in the chat, so thank you guys for throwing those out there. Keep them coming. So Faith has a question. In terms of affording graduate school, I've been told that some state schools offer tuition waivers. Do the panelists know more about this and how you would go about getting this, or just scholarships in general? Do you have any tips?
Okay, so this doesn't directly apply to the question, but it's just a fun tidbit. One of the reasons that I was really attracted to the idea of an international degree was because I found that in the UK, for example, a lot of the programs were just 1 year, which obviously cut tuition down a lot. And it was a very intensive year. You still completed a dissertation, but you got, your degree, and it was a lot less expensive than it was in the US, and frankly it was like the same quality of degree. So that was a big thing for me, just tuition wise, because yeah, I didn't want to tack on more loans to go to grad school, and I know that's a harsh reality for like a ton of people, and I did tack on some loans for grad school, but it wasn't near to the extent that I would have had I stayed in the States and done like a 2 to 3 year program. So that said, I did get a scholarship too, and scholarships are important. Definitely try to get those scholarships. Save money.
Absolutely. Look for scholarships, teaching assistants, graduate assistants, research assistants. And again, it's all tied together. So whatever you're doing in undergrad, whatever your major is, try to get really involved, try to work on projects with faculty so that when you apply to graduate school, you'll have something to talk about, and you can say, hey, I've already worked on this and this topic. I'm looking for fellowships, I'm looking for research assistantships. All those things go a long way. You can reach out to specific departments if there's a school you're interested in, and just ask, just find out. Another thing that people can do sometimes is, if you're looking to start work, some people work at colleges and universities, and then through that way, you're able to attend to get your degree, whether that's undergrad or graduate school. So that might be an option for some people as well.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the state waivers, but for law school, the the biggest thing is the LSAT and your GPA. I didn't think I didn't really realize how important it was, especially when you're going to smaller schools. Um, but the LSAT could be your ticket to a free ride at a lot of places. I'm aware of a lot of students actually who received a full ride to schools in Chicago. So just making sure that you really study hard for the LSAT. But there's also a ton of common application scholarships for law school and grants that you can get. If you talk to your counselors or Dr. Kavanaugh at North Central, they can put you in touch and give you some links to some good like common applications. And then once you're in law school too, the nice thing is they have common applications that you can fill out too, to ease the cost. But that said, that's the biggest thing.
I don't really have anything to add. I am taking out loans. Nicest thing though, I will say about if you do have to take out loans for grad school, they don't look at your parents' income. So if they're giving you like the lower amount because of your parents are making however much and they're not helping you pay for school, grad school only look at your income. So I'm now getting the full amount and it's covered by federal loans, which right now there's no interest on, which is wonderful. So if you can't get or snag a scholarship, the federal loans are kind of a nice way to help pay for it.
Yeah, those are all really great tips and all of that. So Rebecca has a question. And what are your tips for looking for graduate programs besides location and price?
For me, like if you have a solid 4 stuck between, my biggest tip would be to talk to faculty and try to be in touch with other students. I think the big thing for me that I like about John Marshall is the community and is the relationship that the students have with one another and their professors. And so you can try to ascertain that from talking to people. I think that it'll be very beneficial in your choice, because I would say, like, especially in law school, all the schools take like the same classes your first year. Level of education is basically the same apart from your standard professor change. So you really want to get to know those professors before you attend and get to know what students think of those professors and their performance in those classes.
I would say figure out obviously which kind of program you want to go into and then go to different schools based off of location and price and kind of look into their mission statements. For me, one of the biggest things I wanted out of a counseling program was that it had a strong emphasis on multiculturalism, and DePaul had that, and there was a few others that did. So that was kind of what made me choose, like, not just location and price, but okay, this is the kind of program that like has a sort of mission statement that I would be okay with fulfilling in my work. So just reading into a little bit more about what the program stands for.
For sure. I would say so start doing your research and look for schools like if you're really interested in a certain professor, you can always reach out with emails to find out more about the program. But definitely a big thing is when you're looking for colleges, um, and graduate programs, you want to check out the school's mission statement. That's like the biggest thing to find out what's important to that school, because some schools have values that might not, or they may line up with yours. And I think that that will make your time in graduate school much easier when you feel like you're aligned, you're at a place and you're aligned and you're supported with what the school's values are as well.
Yeah, those are really great tips. I think that was a lot of things to think about. Lori has a question. Sorry, I know I did this one out of order. So sorry, Lori, if you thought I forgot. But what's one piece of advice you would give to a current senior that you wish you would have known in the process of searching for grad school?
I remember when I was looking for grad school and applying, it was right at the same time where I was like in the thick of my honors thesis, and I was juggling like leading this organization and working and like doing all this stuff. And so life was just super crazy. And I remember I wish that I had maybe a couple more people in my corner, or just like told myself that, hey, it's really going to be okay. Like, I know it feels crazy now, but maybe take a little pressure off of, having to pick the exact right school and the exact right program and like the exact right path, because more often than not, there isn't that. And it's really going to be like your experience is going to be what you make it, and you can really make the best of it anywhere you are. So I think that's advice that I would have liked to give myself in the midst of that kind of chaotic year of trying to figure my life out, is just like take the pressure off a little bit, because it's going to be okay. Like, you've worked hard, you're going to keep working hard, you're going to pick a school, it's going to work out, and life kind of goes on. So that's just what I needed to hear, and I don't know if anyone else needs to hear that. So
Yeah, I would definitely add to that and say, don't second guess yourself. Don't count yourself out, because I kind of did that and I ended up applying to graduate schools late. I just wasn't sure if I were able to do it. Like I think my son was a sophomore in high school. My daughter was in sixth grade. So I was just like, oh, well, I've been in school all this time and I don't think maybe I won't get in. So I second guessed myself a lot. And really, when you're applying for the assistantships and the scholarships and things, you have to do that um, like super early, like in the fall, before you want to start graduate school. And so I missed that complete time to even try to apply for any scholarships or fellowships or anything. So I felt like I was kind of scrambling when I decided I would, like, okay, I'm gonna go to graduate school. And thank God, thank goodness, I was still able to find funding to so that I was able to go to graduate school. But I'll just say, don't count yourself out. Like, if you've been planning, if you've been dreaming about going to graduate school, like, just hold fast to it and just know, like, the work that you've been doing as an undergrad is meaningful, and you're gonna find your school that's gonna fit for you.
One thing I will say is not necessarily like what I wish I would have heard, but something I did was, if you have friends who are also looking into grad school, just sit down and work on the applications together. Because when you're sitting alone and working on those applications, you can really get in your head and be like, oh my God, I don't even know what to say. I don't even want to talk about myself. But if you're with someone else, you can like at least talk out loud to each other, or someone is sitting there with you going through the same process. So finding just a small support group, even if it's one other friend who is also looking into grad school, was really helpful with the application process.
Yeah, I exactly what everybody else was saying. I think the biggest thing is preparation. Try to get a jump on it. Even if you're unsure as to whether or not you're going to go, it's better to prepare a little bit at a time than to wait until the last second. There's a lot of waiting in the application process for law school, which is very stressful. So if you get all the hard work done at the beginning of the year, when it comes time, like then you just focus on enjoying the rest of your senior year or whatever you're working on if you're taking time off, of course. But you get to just relax because you know that everything was done before then.
Yes, definitely. I do want to add, from my experience, I worked for 2 years, and as a senior, I like in the back of my head, it was like, oh, I want to go to grad school. I don't know what I want to go for. I don't know if I can afford it. So it was just like there, but it never like transpired to anything. And then I worked, and it like the seed was planted so much that it just like was just always like in the back of my head. So I guess like for a senior that might be feeling that way, like that it just might not be like possible like right now. And then so like my advice would be, you can still talk to your professors. Like in my experience, I talked to Dr. Garrity when I was a senior. 2 years later, I reached back out to her, and now I'm her GA. So like I also talked to like other professors at the time, like that I was when I was like like thinking like, should I go back to school or not? Like I just kept in contact with those professors. So they could write my letter of recommendations and all of that. So like just like have that mindset as well. So like if it's really not something you can do, just know that it's always something you can do to keep the door open by communicating with your like professors and that kind of stuff along the way. We have another question in the chat. How do you find out about assistantships?
So for North Central makes it super easy to find out if they have graduate assistantships. I was so lucky that I decided to come to graduate school because graduate assistantships are usually 2 years because master's programs are about 1 to 2 years at North Central. And so when I decided to go to graduate school, there were all these assistantships open. So and I had been not having so much luck because again I mentioned like I waited too late to apply to the assistantships, which usually pop up in the fall. And so some schools make it super easy and they'll have it listed under employment opportunities, so you can check there first. I know some job apps, they usually, if you search graduate assistantships in like whatever area, also social media groups, like if you get into like social media groups, they'll with different schools, they'll usually talk about that they have assistantships coming up. I know for higher education and student affairs, I'm in a few groups on social media, and the people who work there post that they'll have assistantships, resident assistantships opening up, coordinator positions that often come with room and board along with tuition remission. So there's a bunch of different ways. I'll look to social media, look on the job boards, and look on those schools' employment sites as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know if Margaret or anyone in career development has anything to add to that statement, like I'm not sure if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, I echo what Danielle said. I think all of those places are great places. I think that's another question you ask when you're looking at those graduate programs. If you're in contact with faculty there or admissions representatives, that would be a great question for them. Like, hey, I'm interested in looking for assistantships. Is that something that you all offer? And I mentioned this in the chat, but a lot of times it's program dependent. So for example, if you're going into a research heavy type of graduate program, it might make sense that you're looking for a research assistantship, right? Like if you're trying to become an ecologist or a historian, something like that, where research makes sense. And so it really kind of depends based on the program. And yeah, if you're studying student affairs, I was one of them, it makes sense that you're looking for, there's going to be assistantships in student affairs because it's a college. But yeah, I'd say the advice I have, and Heidi or Barb, please feel free to jump in if either of you had additional thoughts, but to beyond everything that Danielle said, job boards, great place to look. Talking to the faculty you know at North Central, and then also talking to faculty or admissions representatives and asking them those questions at the institutions you're looking into.
My only comment would be that GA positions are sometimes posted in Handshake as well, so you can take a look at that sometimes in there.
Thank you. That was a lot of great information. So we have asked a lot of questions. Does anyone have anything else to add in the chat? I kind of went over everything I have. I know it's 5:15, so I want to give everyone another chance to ask any questions you might have in the chat. One of my last questions that we didn't get to was just how would you describe the process of applying to grad school? I don't know if you guys want to talk about that a little bit.
One thing I will say is it can get expensive. Make sure you're looking at applications because most of mine were like 40 to 50, but there was one school, it was a really great school, didn't get in, but it was $100 for the application. So it can get pretty pricey. Other than that, it is going to be annoying because I personally hate talking about myself, and all those applications, you have to hype yourself up. So if you can, I guess if you feel the same way, if you can move past that, and really you don't have to talk about how great you are, just talk about everything you've done. You don't have to be like, oh my God, I'm such a great person, I'm super helpful. Just be like, this is everything I've done. And then even mention like any work you've had with professors or anything like that. Just kind of state the facts. You don't have to really hype yourself up, because that's kind of how I did it.
Yeah, I can't stress enough. Like, talk, like, while you're in undergrad, work on things you're passionate about. So if you're deciding to go to graduate school, that's the hard part, is like, oh, personal statement. What? How do I talk about myself? You won't even have to worry, because as you're in undergrad, you're doing things that you care about, that you're passionate about. And again, you're going to be speaking the facts. The passion is going to come through on the paper. Okay, so that will make that process a little bit easier. So you don't have to come up with like the fluff words. You're going to be talking about what I've done. I've done this, I've done that. And basically, these things have already prepared me to do a graduate program. And I think that's one of the biggest parts. And again, get with like-minded people. So if you have a friend, if you have a buddy, and you guys are thinking about graduate school, and I know this is really important for first generation students, because like, okay, we've done undergrad and it's like, what, graduate school, that, is that another hurdle? Like, how can I do it? You can do it. So get with like-minded people, work on those applications together, ask for letters of recommendation early. And I would even suggest, after you're doing things, so if you work on a project, so if you go study abroad, if you do this, if you work doing some research, always ask that professor or staff member or administrator if they could write you a letter of recommendation, or if you can use them as a reference. So you always want to have those things on hand before it gets time to start applying for the graduate programs.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. Nick has a question. Has writing the thesis helped in the graduate school application process?
I would say it helps with like the personal statement. It's research you're doing. You can talk about research for a giant chunk of that, because graduate schools love to see it's a piece of involvement you have, even if you do nothing else, if you're not part of any clubs or anything, you have now done research. So graduate schools love to see that. So I would say it definitely is a really good building block for your application.
Yeah, I would totally echo that. And then I know for me, so like to complete my program, I had to do a dissertation, and all of the students that did not have to do a self-led research project in their undergrad, they really struggled with that. And it was hard work, like it was challenging, but I felt so much more equipped to handle writing a dissertation after coming off of the honors thesis. So that's just more of an encouragement than anything. It didn't really have to do with the application process, but there you go.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, quick, if you do a thesis, any type of like big project, those things, like the other ladies mentioned, is going to absolutely prepare you for graduate school. And then, because again, you'll have to do some type of research or dissertation again for graduate school. It's going to do nothing but prepare you, prepare you even more.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is all great things. And I know that for me, I used my like thesis as like I definitely discovered my passion through my thesis. And I know you're at that point already, but like that really helped me decide like I want to pursue higher education based on like my thesis. So that's just another, like, doesn't exactly answer your question, but it aids it a little bit, I guess. But yeah, we don't have any more questions in the chat. So I'll ask final question unless something else comes up in the chat. But do you guys have any other advice or just any final thoughts that you have want to share with everyone tonight?
I guess the biggest thing I'll say is if you really want to go to grad school, go to grad school. Either go right now, take a gap year, or what. Because I know one of my closest friends, she didn't really know if she wanted to go to grad school, so she didn't, because why go to grad school if to spend that money if you don't really know. So if you know you either have to go to grad school like I did, or you just really want to go to grad school to continue that education, go, because it is really fun. If you find a program that you're passionate about, it doesn't really feel like school to me. There's some days where it does. Don't get me wrong. There's some days where I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to go to class tonight. But other days it's like, no, I actually really want to go to class. I want to talk about this reading that I did because it was super interesting. So it's a lot more interesting than like general education classes, because it is so honed in on one thing. So it is really fun. If you want to go, go.
Yeah, I definitely like the encouragement there. That was awesome. I'm sorry, Rain, you can.
It's okay. No. All right. I have 3 pieces of advice. The first 2 I think are applicable to everything. Networking is huge. I didn't have a LinkedIn, nor was I even told really about LinkedIn in undergrad, just because of what I was doing. If you don't have one, it's very important, I think, for any thing that you're going into. Second thing, this is something my dad always said, like, you gotta love it. And if you don't love it, you have to convince yourself that you do love it, because I think that when you love something, that passion drives you to want to succeed and dedicate your time to it. And there's a lot of classes like that I wasn't loving at the start of it. And once I convinced myself that I enjoyed it, it became easier for me to do the work and become involved in the class. This is really just for law school. I think that there's a big stigma that like law school is for smart people and that you have to be very intelligent to go to law school. And from my experience, I don't think that that's the case. I don't think you have to be smart to get into law school, and I don't think you have to be smart to succeed in law school. I think for law school, and of course this could apply to everything, it's about work ethic and how much work you're willing to put in and outworking your classmates, especially in law school. And because there's a lot of imposter syndrome in law school, and I think to overcome that imposter syndrome, I just worked and put in a lot of hours. I don't think that being in law school has made me any smarter, or I am, more intelligent than when I graduated even. I just think that I've learned what it took to succeed. And I didn't think I got that until I had to succeed to stay in school, I guess. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. It's awesome that you brought up imposter syndrome, because I think that that's a huge thing that a lot of people deal with. So that was a really good point that you brought up. And we do have another question in the chat. So thank you so much, Rebecca. This is a wonderful question. What obstacles have you faced in your graduate program, and how have you overcome them? I love this question. This is great.
Yeah, it is a great question. The biggest obstacle, and I think Rain can agree, is COVID. This has really, it's not at all what I expected. I was expecting to commute to Chicago every day and, go into class and like meet people in person. So it's been a lot to not only have to deal with the big change of being in a pandemic and being stuck inside for a year, but also having to add a new type of school on top of it. Other than that, that tiny little thing, I guess just like adjusting to the workload, because undergrad was so different and now it's a lot of reading. And if you don't kind of like get your mind onto that reading, you will get bored really quick. Yeah, so it's just been kind of just coping with the changes that occurred over the past year.
Yeah, I totally agree. just to mention imposter syndrome again, we take like an EXL, so like an experiential learning class, your first semester, and they talk about imposter syndrome a ton. And I actually went through it quite a bit in like the first 2 weeks because it just felt like I did not belong being a first gen student as well. And I think having other law students around me, knowing that people were also going through that and the school talking about it too openly, made finding a support group for that really easy. But I think just talking, being kind to yourself really is a big. And then with Zoom University, I think Zoom University has taught me that I am in control of my own education, and it's been really tough to focus classes, and it's been really easy to focus on other classes. John Marshall has been doing hybrid classes, and I can definitely tell that I'm more engaged in my masked 6 feet apart in-person class than I am on Zoom. And so you got to find ways to, hopefully this advice doesn't really help anymore, but you have to find ways on Zoom to keep yourself engaged. And so for me, it was always dressing nice and having my camera on. Like, there are a lot of classes that don't force people to have their camera on. And if I don't have to have my camera on, I don't really pay attention that much. So you just have to find those things and really just take control and keep talking with people to motivate you to keep putting that work in.
Can I throw in one last thing? I'm going to be totally honest. For me, the hardest thing in graduate school was not having, honestly, enough money. And so, you work for a little pay, sometimes as an assistant to pay for your graduate school. So just balancing that, I really had to lean on my family for support in that area. But again, it was something that I was driven to do, something that was really important to me, and I was able to give that program my all. And I'm really grateful. I'm thankful for the people who supported me through that program. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm staying quiet on this question just because I think all the obstacles I had were very niche for being an international student. So again, if anyone's interested in that route, just send me a direct message and we can chat, but I won't take up your time.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions for anyone on the panel, feel free to email me. I'll drop my email in the chat, and then I can get you in contact with whoever you want to communicate with. And then I totally lost my train of thought there. But I just wanted to say that to Danielle's point, I think that's a really good piece of advice, is just knowing that you have support otherwise, because sometimes it is kind of overwhelming, financially or just mentally and all of that kind of stuff. So having the support, it's really nice that you brought that comment up, because I think that's really important. I think we have a lot of really encouraging things that we've said tonight, so I'm really glad, and I hope everybody is walking away from this feeling a little bit more encouraged about going to graduate school. I feel like I am, even though I'm in grad school, but I feel just more encouraged right now. Anyways, I just wanted to quick shout out to the CARD 10 or the CARD classes. There is that link to fill out so you could get credit. Heidi dropped it in the chat, but I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you so much for helping our current Cardinals kind of get all of this new advice, and I know we all appreciate it, your time and your willingness to share all of these great things. And thank you everyone for coming. I think it's really great that we had some turnout tonight.
Thanks so much. I just want to echo that. And if I can just add one thing for the students in the chat, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. Since we're career development, just know that we're here for you. And if you can sign up for an appointment with us, and we can walk you through the admission process. We can, I think I forget who it was. They're like, you got to hype yourself up. I can help hype you up. I'm here for that. That's my favorite part of my job, hyping up students. So just know career development is here for you as a resource throughout the process, because it's a lot. But I just can't thank our panelists enough. That was so insightful. I'm really excited to have this recording to share with students. And I also want to say thank you to Brittany. awesome job moderating. I know that job is never that easy and you did it really well.